The door that slammed and the secret I never told. The day my son slammed the door in my face, I didn't cry. Not at first. I stood there on the porch, suitcase in hand, the cool wind brushing against my cheeks like a mocking whisper. You really thought they'd welcome you back? My shoes, still damp from walking up the gravel path, made a soft squish with every slight movement. But I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stared at the door, closed now, locked from the inside, as though I could will it to open again, as if the man behind it would realize what he had done. But no. There was no apology, no hesitation, no sound at all, except the soft chime of the doorbell I'd rung only 15 minutes ago. As I returned home from my final day at work, I had rehearsed what I was going to say in the taxi ride over. Ethan, I lost my job today, but I'm all right. I'll find something else, or maybe I'll rest for a while. I never got to say the second sentence. He cut me off halfway through the first. His voice thundered across the hallway. So that's it. You're just giving up? No job, no income, and you come here expecting us to take care of you. It wasn't the words that hurt most. It was the look. Like I was a burden, a parasite, something clinging to his life and sucking it dry. My son, the boy I had raised alone after the divorce, the boy I had nursed through 3 surgeries and fed with food I often went without myself, the boy I'd carried through nights of asthma attacks, late tuition payments, and the bone-deep weariness of working 2 jobs and sleeping on the bus home. That same boy was now looking at me like I was a stranger who didn't belong. But what Ethan didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had a secret that would change everything. A secret buried under years of sacrifice, humility, and silence. Because the job I had just lost wasn't just a job. It was my bridge to a fortune. The morning started like any other. I woke up before the sun, slipped into my work uniform, and made myself a cup of tea in the silence of the tiny room I rented. My bones ached in places I never used to notice. But I had grown used to the quiet, the solitude. For the past 6 years, I had worked as a live-in housekeeper and personal assistant to Ms. Eleanor Barrett, a wealthy, elegant widow who treated me with a respect I rarely saw from anyone else. She was strict, yes, but kind. She trusted me with everything. Her appointments, her medications, even her secrets. And then, 3 days ago, Eleanor passed away quietly in her sleep. The lawyers called me this morning. Her family didn't want to continue employing me. No surprise, I was never one of them. And with Eleanor gone, my contract ended. Just like that. But what the family didn't know, what even Ethan didn't know, was that Eleanor had rewritten her will last year. In secret, with her lawyer present, she had held my hand and said, "You gave me companionship when my own family gave me nothing. You gave me dignity. You gave me warmth. I want you to have the life you gave me." I was stunned when the lawyer showed me the final document. Eleanor had left me a fortune, over $8 million in total assets, a trust fund, real estate holdings, even a vintage car I never even knew she owned. And I hadn't told a soul, because I wanted to see who would stand by me when they thought I had nothing. Back at Ethan's house, when I arrived, I didn't expect celebration. I didn't expect hugs, but I expected, at the very least, some warmth. Ethan's wife, Carla, opened the door. Her lips curled when she saw me standing there with a suitcase. "Didn't you say you'd be working through the summer?" she asked, stepping aside without offering help. "I lost my job," I said gently. "Ms. Barrett passed away." She didn't even blink. "So you're unemployed now?" Before I could respond, Ethan appeared in the hallway. He looked tired, older than his 35 years, but his eyes were cold, colder than the wind outside. "What do you expect us to do, Mom?" he said, arms crossed. "We've got bills. Carla's expecting. I just started a new project, and you want to move in. How does that help?" "I thought I'd stay just a few weeks," I replied. Help around the house. Be there for Carla. Maybe cook some meals. Carla scoffed. Help? What can you help with? We've already got a housekeeper, and when the baby comes, we're hiring a professional nurse. I looked at Ethan, hoping he'd soften. He didn't. You'll just be another mouth to feed, he said. And now that you're not earning anything, it's not fair to put that pressure on us. I swallowed. My throat was dry. I raised you. I fed you. I gave up. You chose that. He snapped. No one asked you to sacrifice your life for me. And now, what? You want payback? We're not running a charity, Mom. I'm sorry, but you need to figure this out on your own. Carla chimed in again, not even looking at me as she scrolled through her phone. There's a senior community center down the street. They offer low-cost housing and part-time work for women your age. You could try there. A numbness spread through my limbs. This wasn't a family discussion. It was a performance. They had already decided I wasn't welcome. I reached for my suitcase, but my fingers were trembling. Then Ethan walked to the door, opened it wide, and gestured for me to leave. I'll call you a cab, he said. I walked here, I whispered, then walked back. Outside in the cold again. As the door closed behind me, I didn't sob. I didn't scream. I just stood there, heart pounding like a drum inside an empty room. But as I walked down the driveway and turned onto the street, I smiled to myself. Because Ethan had just made the greatest mistake of his life. He thought I was broke, powerless, disposable. But the truth, I had more power in that moment than I'd ever had before. And soon, the world would know it. Not to punish him, but to remind myself, I am not a burden. I am not a servant. I am not a woman to be discarded. I checked into the most luxurious hotel in the city that night, champagne in hand, and a glint in my eye. I had a plan. And soon, I would walk back into Ethan's world, not as a beggar, but as the woman he never truly knew. A new name, a new life, and a quiet revenge. The first night at the hotel, I didn't sleep. Not because of sadness, but because I was finally free. For the first time in years, no one was asking me to make dinner. No one was calling to ask for a loan. No one was waiting at the door with another guilt trip dressed as concern. No one was there to question my worth. I sat on the hotel bed, surrounded by velvet cushions and soft lighting, sipping tea that I didn't have to brew myself. And I smiled. Let them think I'm nothing. Let them think I'm done. I'll show them what a nobody can do. That night, I made a list. It only had 3 items. Reclaim what's mine. Reinvent my life. Watch them realize too late what they lost. The hidden side of me they never knew. For decades, I've been the background character in everyone's story. The helper. The extra. The housekeeper. The woman who showed up with casserole dishes and left quietly after sweeping the kitchen. But Ms. Eleanor Barrett changed that. In her final years, she didn't just pay me to clean or care for her. She educated me, encouraged me. She taught me how to think like the wealthy, not just how to live like one. Margaret, she once said, sipping red wine from a crystal glass, money is a magnifier. It doesn't change who you are. It shows the world what you always were. When the lawyer handed me the inheritance documents, he smiled kindly and said, Ms. Barrett wanted you to use this not just to live, but to rise. And that's exactly what I intended to do. A new beginning. The next morning, I ordered breakfast in bed, not because I was hungry, but because I could. Then I met with Ms. Barrett's private wealth manager, a quiet, well-dressed man named Victor who handled her estate with almost frightening efficiency. Miss Turner, he said as we sat across a mahogany desk in his skyscraper office, your trust account is fully liquidated and under your name now. Would you like to discuss investment options or immediate usage? I smiled. Both. Over the next hour, Victor and his team set me up with a financial plan that would make most stockbrokers dizzy. We allocated 60% to real estate and index funds, 25% to savings, and the rest to flexible life purchases. Translation: spending money. I walked out of that office not just rich, but ready. The house I built, the house I'll reclaim. 2 days later, I paid a surprise visit to the house Ethan and Carla were still living in. The same house I had bought with my own money, down to the last nail. When Ethan was in college, struggling to make ends meet, I worked 3 jobs and funneled every dollar into saving for a home they could raise their family in. But when we closed the deal, the deed went under their names. "Mom," Ethan had said back then, "it'll be easier for tax reasons. We'll put your name on it later." Of course, later never came. Now I stood at the sidewalk, staring at the windows where I once folded laundry, cooked dinner, helped Ethan recover from the flu, and changed 1,000 diapers when his daughter was born. Carla was outside watering her perfectly trimmed hedge. She froze when she saw me. "Oh," she said flatly, "it's you." I smiled, wide and calm. "Lovely day, isn't it?" She frowned. "Why are you here?" "I'm just passing by," I said. "This neighborhood is going to change soon. Property prices are expected to drop. People don't realize what's coming." She scoffed. "What would you know about the market?" "More than you think," I said sweetly. "Have a wonderful afternoon." As I turned to leave, I added, "By the way, check your mailbox this week. You might be getting some interesting letters." Back at the hotel. The transformation. That evening, I walked into the hotel salon and spa. "I want a change," I told the stylist. She studied my face and nodded. "Say no more." When I looked into the mirror 2 hours later, I barely recognized myself. Gone was the tired bun and faded uniform. In its place stood a graceful woman with sleek, silver-streaked hair, tailored clothing, and a quiet confidence in her eyes that no one could ignore. I felt like the final version of myself, not the helper, not the caretaker, but me. That night, I called Victor again. "I want to buy a house," I said. "Would you like to look at some options?" he asked. "No," I said. "I already know which one." And I gave him the address, Ethan's house, the one I bought, and now planned to reclaim. The legal checkmate. Within 72 hours, Ethan and Carla received a formal letter from my lawyer. It was short, professional, and cold. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Turner, this is to inform you that a legal investigation has been initiated regarding the fraudulent handling of property ownership for the residence located at 1849 Maple Ridge Lane. Supporting documentation, including bank transactions and audio recordings, indicate that the down payment, mortgage, and renovation expenses were exclusively covered by Margaret Turner. You are requested to vacate the premises within 30 days or face legal proceedings. We are open to settlement discussions prior to court escalation. Sincerely, Rachel Lynn and Associates, Legal Counsel." They called me within 5 minutes. "Carla first. You vindictive snake. What kind of mother sues her own son?" I replied calmly. "The kind of mother who's done being used." Then Ethan got on the line. His voice was trembling. "Mom, please, this doesn't have to get ugly." "Oh, honey," I said gently, "you're the one who made it ugly. I just cleaned it up." The crow that tasted like regret. I showed up to the settlement meeting wearing a white silk blouse and gold watch. Carla arrived in ripped jeans and fury. Ethan looked like he hadn't slept in days. The lawyer handed me a document with the new agreement terms. They were to vacate the house. I would resell it. But I'd give them one small favor. I would let them keep the furniture. Carla snatched the pen and scrawled her name with a shaking hand. "Enjoy your empty house," she hissed. "No one wants to live in a place filled with ghosts." I met her eyes. "I don't plan to live in it." Her brow furrowed. I leaned forward, voice low. "I plan to tear it down and build something better, just like I did with my life. Back to the life I deserve." Later that week, I closed on a new luxury villa in a gated community. The place had marble floors, glass walls, a private garden, and a grand piano already tuned and polished. The realtor, a young woman named Grace, gasped when she saw my bank statement. "Would you like to finance this over 5 years?" she asked. I smiled. "No, I'll pay in full. Today." She blinked. "You're paying cash?" "Yes," I said, handing her the signed paperwork. "I like to own what I build." That evening, I moved into my new home. Alone, yes, but finally at peace. The next day, while walking through the boutique shopping plaza downtown, someone called my name. I turned slowly, and there she was. Susan, Ethan's mother-in-law. The woman who once told me I wasn't good enough to even hold her daughter's purse. She stood there, stunned. "You," she whispered, and I smiled. Because the woman standing before her was no longer the maid, but the millionaire. The final silence before applause. The sky was clear the day I saw her. Susan, Ethan's mother-in-law, the professor who always spoke as if her words came with footnotes, who once said I should be grateful to live near people of a higher standard. She stood frozen, her designer scarf fluttering in the spring breeze, eyes narrowing as she took in my new form. Pearls, a cream silk trench coat, and a calmness she couldn't place. Her lips parted, confusion twisting her face. "Margaret." I smiled gently. "It's been a while." "Susan." She blinked fast, as if trying to remember where she'd last placed me. In the kitchen, in the background, in her rearview mirror. But I was no longer behind anyone. A quiet encounter that spoke loudly. "You look different," she said, eyes scanning my face and pausing at the gold ring Eleanor once gave me. "What happened to you?" I let the silence stretch long enough to make her uncomfortable. Then I said softly, "You all assumed I was a burden. You never once stopped to wonder what would happen if I ever stood up and chose to live for myself." She crossed her arms tightly. "Ethan's going through a rough time. He told me you overreacted, that you just got emotional after losing your job." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the job that left me $8 million in inheritance? That one?" Her mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. I continued, "You know, Susan, people like you always think humility is weakness. But humility isn't silence. It's strength held back. And when you insulted me that night, suggesting I work as a live-in servant again, I wasn't quiet because I was ashamed. I leaned in slightly. I was quiet because I knew what was coming. The social unraveling. That same week, I hosted a private luncheon in the courtyard of my new villa. I invited no one from my past, only new acquaintances, a retired judge, a pianist, a kind florist who had once handed me a bouquet just because I looked lonely. But the whispers spread. Through real estate circles, through the luxury piano showroom, through the same charity board Susan once denied me membership from because I was staff. They whispered about the woman who bought 2 villas in one day, about the ex-housekeeper who played Beethoven like she was born with the keys in her veins, about the millionaire who had no past, only rumors and elegance. Then one day, an invitation arrived at my villa gate. A gala, a high society charity event. Signed by Susan herself. The night of the gala, I arrived in a navy blue evening gown, hair swept into a soft bun. No flashy diamonds, just grace. I walked in alone, but I wasn't lonely. People turned to look, not because I was loud or dressed to shock, but because confidence walks louder than stilettos ever could. Susan spotted me mid-conversation and nearly dropped her champagne glass, but she composed herself and approached quickly. "Margaret, I'm so glad you came." I offered her a gentle smile. "Are you?" She hesitated. I wanted to apologize for any misunderstandings. "Misunderstandings," I echoed. "I may have judged you too quickly," she admitted, glancing at the people now whispering and looking our way. "But we're all learning, aren't we?" "No," I said calmly. "You're not learning. You're reacting. There's a difference." I stepped closer. Because if I were still sweeping your daughter's kitchen, you wouldn't be apologizing. You'd still be sneering. Her face paled. She tried to smile. Let's not cause a scene. I turned to walk away, but paused. You know what the worst part was, Susan? She looked up, eyes wary. It wasn't that you judged me. It was that you taught my son to do the same. The final blow. A public truth. 2 weeks later, my face was all over social media. Not from Ethan's lies, but from my own live broadcast. I hadn't planned to speak publicly, but after Ethan's manipulative pity livestream went viral, I had to clear the air. So I told the truth. I showed the documents, the photos, the scanned adoption certificate. I revealed how I found Ethan as a sickly baby abandoned in an alley, how I'd given up everything to save him, how I'd raised him with a heart full of hope, even when my bank account was empty, and then how he threw me away when I lost my job. I didn't disown my son. I said, looking straight into the camera, I set him free, so he could finally see who he really was, without my support holding him up. The internet exploded. Millions viewed it. News outlets picked it up. And Ethan's image, the brave, abandoned son, crumbled like cheap plaster. His followers vanished. His sponsors pulled out. His accounts were suspended. He tried to spin it again. Another pity party. But the world had seen too much. You can't lie about love when the receipts are this loud. Closure, not revenge. Ethan sent me one final email. It was long, rambling, angry and tearful at the same time. He blamed me. He begged me. He cursed me. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because true closure isn't about punishing someone. It's about walking past them without flinching. It's about hearing your name spoken with spite and smiling anyway. It's about knowing that even if they never understand what they lost, you know what you gained. 1 year later, I now live in a quiet town by the lake. I take walks every morning with a golden retriever named Clover. I teach piano once a week at a youth center. I donate anonymously to struggling single mothers. And on Sundays, I play music for myself, for no one else, for the pure joy of it. I don't think about Ethan often anymore. But when I do, I don't feel hate. I feel something sadder, something colder. Pity. Because he had everything. My love, my labor, my life. And he traded it for pride. Now he's alone. And I'm finally, blessedly, free. To everyone who has ever been used and discarded, to every mother, father, grandparent, or guardian who gave until they had nothing left, know this. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Your kindness is not weakness. And one day, when you rise, they'll wish they had stood beside you instead of on your back. Stand tall. Rise anyway. And let your silence echo louder than their applause ever could.